This is a $1,000 Minecraft server, and if you've ever wondered what goes on behind the scenes on a server like this, you've come to the right place. In this video, I'll take you guys on a journey through everything that happens in the background, including all the builds, features, textures, and a lot more stuff. The server I'm about to show you is my RPG project that has been in the works for almost 2 years. This video will be split into 3 chapters, each chapter showcasing an essential part of making such a server. So sit back and enjoy the video. Why don't we start with the map? Because everybody knows, you can't have a server without a map. Duh. Okay, so please state your name for the camera.
Hello, my name's Akin Cray. I'm the lead builder on the FishRPG.
My name is Gabenji. I'm a builder for the server.
And how long have you been building for the FishRPG?
I think about 9 months, 10 months.
Maybe like 2 years now, but I've been building for a lot longer than that.
And would you be able to show us any of the builds that you have made?
Sure. We're up in the mountains to the north of the map, and this is a recreation of an ancient Norwegian stop church, very close to my heart. This architectural style is one of my favorites.
Okay, so as you'll see, this is the mushroom cave. It's a mashup of all kind of organic shapes and then using them to make a new structure, making a very colorful bunch of mushrooms to make a very whole fancy cave.
This is my version of a forest. It's going to be called the Whimsy Wood, and this is a small little settlement inside the Whimsy Wood. And this is another architectural style that I really enjoy. This basilica here was a really great time to build.
So here we are at my building area. This is where I cook up all my builds. And right now I'm in the mouth of a very big beast. It's a tree guy with a very scary face. And I made this just for the forest, I guess, and it's going to have an amazing place.
This is part of the Mushroom Valley. This is where the player is going to start on his quest throughout the RPG. This was a progression through one of the first builds that I made for this RPG server. It took a lot of time to get the terrain correct, and I spent a lot of time learning different techniques and different programs, and overall I'm really happy with the result.
So now we are in a Whimsy Wood forest, and right now I'm standing up top of a burrow, and if you would go into here you would find some very creepy stuff. I guess you have to find out for yourself what is in there.
Okay, this next segment is gonna have some really burning questions made specifically for builders. What would you say is your favorite tool to use when building, be that a mod or a plugin?
Well, I gotta say Axiom has definitely been a game changer, especially since it's come out, but I have to say that nothing beats hand placing.
I mean, there are a lot of building tools, but I think for now I have to choose Archeon.
Now, what would you say is your least favorite block to build with?
But I like all of them.
I would say my least favorite would have to be like using chains because they're just so annoying.
Okay, now this last question everybody's been waiting to know. How many blocks do you think you've placed in total ever since you started working on the FishRPG?
I mean, it's like asking how many sand is on the beach, but
Are we counting hand placed or commands?
a lot, over 1 million probably.
How would I get an exact number? Probably in like hundreds of millions?
So the way that building works is as follows. First, the builders determine a general layout of areas that need to be built. Secondly, the actual terrain must be made. Luckily for our builders, with custom plugins and mods, building terrain nowadays isn't nearly as painful as it used to be. Something that might have taken builders in the old days several weeks to accomplish can be made in hours using specialized tools. It's amazing to see how the Minecraft community keeps making tools that make server making a lot less of a hassle. Take for example Axiom, which essentially turns Minecraft into a whole world editing program. And even though I'm not a builder, it's hard not to appreciate just how significant tools like these are. And I bet most of you would agree with me. Anyway, back to our builder friends. And they made some progress while I was getting sidetracked. So the third step is making templates of the actual builds. These can be placed directly where they're supposed to be, or outside of the map to be pasted in later on. As you can see, on the FishRPG, we have quite a few of these templates floating around the world. For example, take a look at all these mushroom templates. Or how about all these houses? These are all templates of builds that are later used together in a bigger area. For example, the templates I just showed you are placed in this giant mushroom cave. And when builds like these are finished, you can't even tell that they've been pasted in from outside of the map. Another important reason why we make so many templates is for reusability. Take a look at these trees. These are placed around the Mushroom Valley to create a big forest, and they give a pretty good effect considering it's just a couple of templates pasted several times. Another good example is these castle walls. By placing them around the map several times, we create this big wall from just a few templates. Texturing and tweaking are the final steps, and this just brings the whole build together into one finished piece, doesn't it? Not necessarily. It takes time and effort to create a build that we're 100% satisfied with, so revisions are needed in most cases, and they can take up a lot of time considering we're just revamping an area that already exists and not adding new ones to the map. As an example, take a look at this building time lapse. Notice how the build completely changes every so often. And this is just one tower. Imagine doing this with whole towns and caves and interiors. Okay, maybe scratch that last part out. But in all seriousness, building takes a lot of time, especially when working on a bigger scale project like this, so having a good plan is very important. With that said, let's move on to the development side of things. Now, personally, I don't believe it's too far-fetched to say that development is one of, if not the hardest aspects of making a Minecraft server, especially when making a custom project like the FishRPG. One of the biggest reasons for this is that it just takes so damn long. Let me give you an example. Remember that one quest preview video I posted? You know, the one before this video that was like 10 months ago? The one with the custom dialogues and NPC movements and cameras? Yeah, that single quest took a month to make. 1 month of work for roughly 20 minutes of mediocre gameplay filled with stupid dialogue. That's not what this is supposed to be about. It took me 1 month of work to code this stupid snooze fest of a quest. Let me show you guys exactly why this was the case. Okay, so we're in a quest area right now, and what I've done is set up a simple cutscene, so let's play through it. Okay, let's break down some issues. First, the camera could be rotated better and the endpoint is too high. Secondly, the NPC movements are a bit weird and overall the shot could just be much better. Okay, so let's go ahead and fix it then. And just for reference, I'll put a timer up in the corner. Now, in order to fix the camera, I need to get the new endpoint coordinates. Something like this should be good, I think. Paste that into the code, change the rotation. Maybe changing this timing will work better. And I think that's mostly it. Okay, now let's update the server. First, I need to build a plugin though. Okay, that's done. Let's upload that to the server. I gotta close it first. And it's done. Well, that took a bit of time just for some small tweaking, but the only thing that really matters is that the cutscene is now much... Dang it. Do you get it now? Each time there was a slight change, whether it was in the camera system, NPC system or anything else, I would need to get the coordinates blindly, update into the plugin, restart the server with the new plugin, and repeat that several times, because it was impossible to know how it would look until you did that whole cycle. Now, if you ask me, that's a lot of wasted time and potential. So the only reasonable solution was to spend the next 8 months working on a specialized quest editor. Wait, hold on a second, 8 months? For a quest editor? What? Okay, let me give you guys a quick explanation. So, this idea started shortly after I uploaded the quest preview video. I knew that if I kept making quests like this, the server would never release. That's when I had the bright idea. If people made tools like video editors to make editing videos much faster, why don't I create a quest editor to make quest making much faster and easier? It was the perfect plan. The mod would make quest making insanely faster and more accessible to people other than myself. The mod would take some time to make, sure, but in the end, it'd be worth it. Or so I thought. Well, shit. Okay, so this is gonna be quite a challenge since I've never made mods before, but I'm sure it won't take that long. I made a general layout of how I want the mod to look. So right here is where your Minecraft window would be, and right here is where all the stuff will be happening. Now, I just need to translate that to the actual mod. Wish me luck. Alright, so I've managed to get the Minecraft window working. As you can see, it's sized to this space, and I can hover over it and interact as if it was just normal Minecraft. That's good, but it took me a lot of tinkering to figure out what's going on. And if you're unaware, Fabric has like no documentation at all. It's minimal and almost impossible to figure out something like this out yourself unless you're willing to sift through thousands of lines of Minecraft code. Okay, so at this point in the development process, I've got a basic setup working, and as you can see, all the quest stuff is on the left and the Minecraft window is on the right. What you see on the left are called stages. They're what makes the quest. I mean, currently, they're all just a bunch of weights, but I will be adding more stages as time goes on. We're in March and progress is looking kind of steep. Although I have reworked the internal system at least 3 times by now, so who's really to blame? But anyway, you can see some new stages like the repeat and the chat stage, and hopefully it's a little easier to see how the system functions now. Okay, this is where the development starts picking up pace, and does so quickly. I've redesigned the UI so that each stage has an icon, and personally I feel like it's much better than before. Another cool thing I added was the option to select points in the world using your cursor. I thought this was pretty cool, but as you'll see by the end, it's not used as much as I'd wish it were. May is here, and oh boy, were improvements and features added this time around. For starters, there is now a selector section from which you can drag and drop stages. Additionally, all the data about the stages is now moved to this part of the menu for easier editing. Oh, and a bunch of other features like NPCs, rotation selecting, dialogues, and the list just goes on. June also saw lots of new features, one of my favorites being the camera system. Remember how long it took to tweak cameras beforehand with all the restarts and the code editing? Well, now you can literally do all that in a matter of seconds. Just by moving around in-game, I can quickly skim over how the camera looks and feels and edit the positions immediately. It's truly revolutionary compared to the old system. Another system I added was the NPC movement system. Let me show you guys how that works. I just press this record button, move around in-game, and with a little bit of magic, the NPC completely recreates my movement just as I recorded it. Well, that wasn't supposed to happen. Now, this is where it's all coming to a close. I won't get too much into all the new features, as there were lots of small tweaks alongside some pretty important systems. Some of my personal favorites are the item and mob editing system, but a lot of work also went into making the UI more polished and usable. So we're here now. After 8 months of hard work, the mod is finally done. The amount of custom tools that the mod contains is simply put, overwhelming. But it's for the better of the server. If you've watched any live streams since the start of the year, you might have noticed that all of my time was focused on making the quest making mod. And you'd be correct. I personally enjoyed it a bunch, it was fun at times, and allowed me to learn a lot about Minecraft's internals, which is pretty useful for future development. I'd recommend to other developers to at least try out modding, as it can be a good learning experience for many others too. But anyways, the mod is complete, so now let's get to using it. Okay, so making content for a server is a pretty complex subject, as it can't really be interpreted as one single thing or job. Rather, it's a mix of a bunch of subsystems that depend on each other in a well-structured system. For example, in our case, one of the main subsystems is world building. Putting the actual building part to the side, we're left with making a story for our world. Now, this completely depends on what kind of project is being worked on, but in our case, an RPG, a story is one of the most important aspects of the whole thing. The story dictates the setting that the world is in, so depending on the story, the builds are completely different, the mobs, the NPCs, the items, and you get the gist of it. Now, a complex or a big story isn't required per se. There are RPGs out there with little to no story that still do really well. However, for the sake of the Fish RPG, we'll be focusing on the story a bunch, so it's only right that we design our lore well. For obvious reasons though, I won't be showing it to you guys, so you'll just have to take my word for it. Besides a good story, other elements also greatly improve the playing experience. If we're talking about items, this often comes in the form of balancing. Making an item's stats and abilities is pretty difficult, if not impossible to get right on the first try. You never know what weird strategy can suddenly become overpowered, maybe an ability mixed with others will become broken, or an item could have too many or too few stats. Having a lot of players test an item over and over again is good, and then giving feedback on how to balance it is even better. What also helps in balancing is when people who make the server actually play the server. And I know people often dislike balancing changes, as builds break, the meta changes, people aren't as powerful anymore, etc. But I believe that this is a better solution in the long term, as it allows for a better playing experience overall. Moving on though, making abilities for set items is also pretty important for an RPG server like ours. Minecraft doesn't really allow for much customization that you would see in traditional games, like custom player movements such as rolling, and the attacks are pretty boring, so we had to start everything from scratch. So let's start with attack abilities. These are usually pretty simple. In most cases, you either deal damage in an area around a certain point or to a specific target. Now, I could just make an ability that deals X damage around the player and put some explosion particles around, but nobody wants that, do we? Instead, let me show you guys what I've been cooking up in my free time recently. So we're here in my testing world, where I make abilities. Usually, first I have a general idea I want to aim for, then I make a generic visual, in most cases with particles. Here's an example. This is a simple slash attack, but it looks boring right now. But with some improvements, we can make it look much better. Okay, let's look at another example. This is a mix of an attack and movement ability. It kicks the target enemy and launches the player back. Personally, these kinds of abilities are one of my favorites. Usually, in a well-designed attack system, you want the attacks and movement to feel snappy. In this example, the attack resets your movement velocity and applies a force back, so it allows for some nice combo movements like so. We can also make abilities look even nicer with the newly added display entities, like in this jump ability, or this pound ability. For more immersion, we can make the particles and the block displays grab the block data and the direction the ability hits, and that looks something like this. You can see that when the ability hits an ice block, the particles and blocks will also be ice, and if I hit a grass block, they will also be grass. Okay, enough with the ability visuals. We need actual items to put these abilities on. Remember how I said the story dictates how the items look? Well, our story is pretty medieval. And these default Minecraft items don't work that well with the theme we have on the FishRPG, so we obviously had to get some custom items made. All these new textures were made by Woe, shout out to him. They fit our style much better and they look pretty sick. Finally, let's end off with our custom questing system. Even though it hasn't been long enough to see some really in-depth quests be made with our custom mod, it's still pretty impressive to see what can be done in just a few hours of messing around with all the features. Like in this minigame, in which there are several buttons, each with a counter, and every time you click one, the counters next to the button go towards the button pressed. It's a pretty simple puzzle, and it's actually much easier to solve than it looks, and it took little to no time to make. And as time goes on and improvements get added to this tool, custom quests are going to be easier and easier to make. So if you'd like to help us do exactly that, we've opened our quest designer applications. This position is specifically made for quest designing, but it's actually split into two sub-positions, where one consists of purely writing and storyboarding quests, and the other is translating all of that into in-game actions using our mod. So if you're interested in being a quest designer, I've linked the application forms in the description. Our Discord server is also down there, which you should totally join for more server and video updates. That was most of the behind the scenes of our upcoming project, the FishRPG. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe, because I promise I'll be uploading videos again soon. Lastly, thank you to all of my patrons, whose names you can see on the screen. They've genuinely helped the project a ton, so shout out to them. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you for watching and have a great day.
I think there would be Actually, I do not know. Give me a moment. My least favorite, if I have to choose, can it also be a door? A birch door? Yes.